Another facet in the judgment that we should see is the challenges. What are the challenges ahead? One is enforcing the judgment to concrete action. So for that, there was a collaborative effort that was prescribed by the court, which brought many government agencies, civil society organizations, and judiciary to monitor the compliance and hold stakeholders accountable. So there was a judge in the committee, there were different ministerial officers in the committee, non-governmental organizations invited to form the part of the committee to recommend action within a definitive time frame. And then policy and legislative framework in furtherance of this judgment is a challenge, because comprehensive policy will require collaboration and coordination between various governmental agencies. Who could be the agencies here? Energy Ministry is there, Technology Ministry is there, Environmental Ministry, and then we would also look at many other ministries. I mean, the mining. So there were about 4 or 5 ministries which are involved, and then every aspect of climate change has to be seen with this way, with updating existing law, bringing new regulations, creating supporting environment so that all initiatives are climate friendly and there are climate friendly specific initiatives undertaken. Next point is, from where do you get the finance? So the financial resources, that's why he involved Finance Secretary as well in the committee, Honorable Justice Chandrachud. So it is funds to be allocated for research, for technology development, infrastructure project, adaptation measures, and the impact on vulnerable communities. So it had a biological scientist also, ornithologist involved in that. So finally, implementation challenge is about balancing these competing interests. We saw the competing interest of conservation of the most endangered species vis-a-vis developmental goals and complying with the Paris Agreement. Different sectors like energy and industry, agriculture, while upholding climate right is something that requires serious consideration and compromise. There it is very clear that, or very opportune, that there is open dialogue, participatory decision making, that those who are concerned participate, and those officials also go and participate in real life of these issues and find solutions from bottom-up approach from within, and prioritize long-term well-being of both people and the planet. So it's gone that well-being of people alone, but it is a planet as well. And in that planet, even Great Indian Bustard as a place. But okay, what is lost is lost, but what is alive is only this much. So Justice Chandrachud spoke about like how we had tiger project, which was about tiger conservation and tiger breeding. We should have Great Indian Bustard conservation and breeding zones, which Forest Department is doing in case of, I think here in Shivneri, there is a project which is looking after the leopards. So species which are on the verge of extinction or which are especially endangered, for them, conservation projects have come up. So like that, we could have done it. I mean, it's a great wisdom. But for so many years, while talking about it and raising issues in the assembly, in the parliament, even Maharashtra politicians, bird was forgotten. Everything else was discussed. So, but the judgment put the bird also in the center, where the Chief Justice said that we should look at such project approaches. So what is the immediate outcome? Expert committee. As I showed you, that many interdepartmental committees were brought to bring the evidence to the table and decide as per the evidence, balancing the conservation and development. Policy review. So it proposed a policy review of existing policies so that they are consistent with the climate right. Now, climate right will become the acid test for all the policies. I will tell you, the minute we say climate right, as I told in the beginning, when I showed you that sketch, it just doesn't, and in this judgment's main facets also, it just doesn't confine to elements of environment alone. There is finance, there is innovation, there is planning, there is also issue of the vulnerable. So multiple factors will come in. So all the policies have to be, we use the word sanitized for climate change related protection and climate right protection. Increased awareness, so the public awareness has to be increased. So our capacity building through this program, with your COIL program as well as certificate program, I hope will serve this end. So judgment is expected to inspire long-term implication in terms of policy and legal reform, and long-term implications in terms of environmental decision making. So this case and the approach taken here could become a role model. It could become a model for climate change sanitation of approaches in decision making. Climate right related litigation, for the first time, empowering individuals and communities came up, so it could lead to more landmark decisions, and economic transformation of the country into circular economy, which the judgment pointed out, is also, it said that low carbon economy. Actually, it is net neutrality and zero carbon what are aimed at in terms of climate change. So for that, this paved the way. And in positive terms, the transition could also lead to create jobs, reduce pollution, and enhance India's competitiveness in global market, because sustainability you would have studied by now. Tomorrow also I'm going to give a class. So we will see how even SEBI has looked at in terms of green dimensions and sustainability compliances. And we are coming up with, the market has come up with a lot of tools and softwares from this perspective. Now the question is, what are the challenges as far as India's climate change litigation is concerned? So one is India's aggressive development policy. Second is exclusionary conservation. Conservation is seen as an exclusive dimension instead of being how argued in the judgment. It was not correlated with others. And development and conservation seem to be taking two isolated spaces instead of being bridged or interconnected. I tell you, Andaman Nicobar Islands development aspect, when it came before the Indian Ministry, of course, our environmental impact assessment comes in the way, because Andaman is home to a lot of endangered species and ecologically very rich ecosystem. But government wanted to enter into quick development project, because Andaman Nicobar are very attractive tourist destination, and it was also mainstreaming in a way India's unification agenda of the government. But going by the current environmental impact assessment dimension, there is no way this project will see the light of the day, because so many factors. So what did they do? They started in a small way, and they had to put the public interest and other kinds of arguments. Nobody even challenged. I mean, in Andaman, who will challenge? Because the backwardness or lack of leadership, lack of concerns or awareness will make them the victims only, or silent spectators when these changes are happening. So we who believe in development and change with the genuine intention of the government, if we push our aggressive agenda without conservation dimension, then we are not being in favor of the climate change obligations, because they are the vulnerable people. It's a vulnerable ecosystem. And scientifically, if the data is not gathered, maybe we are in for a disaster, because maybe Andaman Nicobar Islands with their unique location are in a way carbon sinks, or they may be also safeguarding against the cyclones. Why West Coast doesn't see the cyclone as much as the East Coast? Show me so much of cyclone in the West Coast, or that disastrous regular feature of cyclone. One of the arguments is that the hills and the lifestyles and the way in which the western coastal line ecosystem is, there are certain kind of electronic impact on the environment. I mean, I listened to this argument from an environmentalist long ago, when Kaiga nuclear establishment was planned in Uttar Karnataka, in Uttar Kannada. Against that, when Madhav Gadgil wrote that report. But we saw the huge disaster in Wayanad, right? And this was anticipated when I was a student. This was advised against, that in these eco-sensitive Western Ghat regions, if current dredging and mining and other aggressive developmental activities are not stopped, it's going to happen. So Madhav Gadgil became a hero overnight, and a lot of people invited him. Of course, now he's retired and he's anonymous in Pune. We had invited him in 2007 and subsequently. I think he wanted to remain anonymous because he was the only scientist, along with, I think, some Anil. They both were strongly arguing. I mean, I remember I was a college student, and the environment then and the environment now are completely opposite of each other. So the disaster doesn't come immediately. It's always in the making. Therefore, exclusionary approach to conservation and aggressive development policy need to be somewhere aligned and balanced. So this challenge needs to be addressed.